Okay, Pauline, you're live and ready to go.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I hope you've all survived the rather blustery winds last night and this morning. I expect a few fences went down, but then that seems to be the norm. Just to say that if we do lose the connection, Matt has informed me that because of the wind, if we do lose a connection, please don't turn your iPads or laptops off. Just leave them on, and Matt will try and get us reconnected as soon as possible. But I would think it's unlikely because the wind where I am in the east has died down, but just to let you know. Welcome to the members of the public who are listening in, and to members of the public who are registered to speak. I would like to introduce the officers who are with us today, so that they will assist us with the applications. We have the Assistant Director of Planning, Officer Philip Rowson. We have the Legal Advisor, Officer Noel Doran. We have and the two officers who are going to present the applications. We also have, who I'll introduce when we do the applications. We also have two officers from Democratic Services. We have Linda Yarham, Officer Yarham, who will, in her wonderful way, keep us on track with times, etc. And Matt Stembrovitz, gosh, I got it right that time, Matt, I think, who will be manipulating and directing the iPads, etc. Our faces, goodness knows. Can I ask you please to mute for members of the committee if you're not speaking, and for anybody else, if they're not in the presentation, to turn off your audio and your visual. So we have several members already who are just, their names appear, but there's no faces. There are no faces. We might have a short break about 11:15 for anybody who wishes it. We'll have to see how the time goes. It might be before that. But if you do want to leave the meeting in the middle of an application, I know most of you realise that if you come back, you cannot vote. I think that's about it. So I will ask Philip, is there anything else you want to mention before I pass on?
No other business to raise at this moment, Chairman. I know we will refer to circulation of letters from interested parties in a few moments. Thank you.
Absolutely, right. Thank you. Now we'll go to the agenda. Item 2, apologies for absence and substitutes. Please, Linda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have an apology this morning from Councillor Nigel Pearce, with Councillor Tom Fitzpatrick here as his substitute. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that you have been circulated the minutes of the last meeting on the 11th of February. Can I ask if you've read these? And can I have a proposer to approve? Councillor, well, it doesn't matter, Councillor Kershaw and Councillor Fitch-Tillett seconding. Could you put your hands up for approval? To accept. Thank you. I think that's unanimous. There are no items of urgent business, I don't think. Is there anything that you know of? No? Matt, nothing?
No, nothing.
No objections. Now, the order of business, we've changed it round. We're going to have item number 8 first, which is the Sheringham application followed by item number 7, which is the Ludham application. I hope this won't cause too much problem for those who are sitting here waiting for the Ludham one, but we felt that was more, that was a better arrangement. Now, declarations of interest. If you know that you have any reason to declare pecuniary or non-pecuniary, will you please state now? Adam, Councillor Varley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to note that I have been in correspondence with both the Parish Council and local residents in regards of the Ludham application, and I believe one of my residents today is making a statement who I've been in contact with. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to put on record that I've been lobbied both in print and face-to-face by the objector for the Sheringham Burlington application, Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. May I just point out now that we have received, I think, all of us letters from both the agent and as supporting and the objector for the Sheringham application. These are, and I just want to ask you, have you all read these letters, please? Does anybody want a couple of minutes to have a look through them again before we go on? No, we're okay with that? Right. So if you could please pass to page 41. And I will ask Officer Medler, Joe, if you can present, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. This is agenda item number 8 for application reference PF stroke 20 stroke 1564 on pages 41 to 51 of your agenda reports pack, along with accompanying slides and appendices on pages 53 to 94. The application is seeking permission for the variation of condition 2 of the approved plans of planning permission PF 140887 to amend the design. That permission was for the partial demolition of the hotel and erection of 6 residential apartments and a single-storey rear extension. This is a part retrospective application. The principle of the acceptability of the development as a whole has already been established under planning permission PF 140887 and is not for consideration under this application. This current application is purely to consider the design changes proposed to the approved scheme. The site is located along the eastern end of the Esplanade at Sheringham, within the designated residential policy area under policy SS3 of the core strategy. The building is a familiar landmark and is also located within the Sheringham conservation area. In terms of report updates, a representation has been received highlighting some points which are not considered to have been wholly considered in the report, and I understand that members have been circulated that letter, which includes those concerns. These are as follows. 1, failure to build to the full width of the site. 2, reduction in car parking. 3, substation construction. 4, failure to use approved bricks. In relation to the car parking, I do have a correction for the report in that there is a proposed shortfall of 2 car parking spaces. This is a reduction from 12 on the approved scheme to 10 on the proposed. I also understand members have been circulated a letter from the agent in support of the application. Members will have viewed the report and accompanying slides, so I will not go through those in detail, but I will be happy to take any questions later. However, I will just highlight the main issues which are regarding design and heritage impact. In terms of design, members will note that there have been various design changes made to the scheme through 3 sets of amendments. Officers welcome some of those amendments which have addressed officers' concerns, as can be seen in the consultation responses of the Conservation and Design Officer in Appendix 1. Unfortunately, for all the positive changes made, there still remains a number of unacceptable design changes on the latest set of amended plans received. It is those unacceptable changes that are considered to be of greater significance to the appearance of the development and impact on the existing Burlington. These remain outstanding concerns and are set out in the most recent consultation response from the Conservation Design Officer dated the 17th of February in Appendix 1 on pages 70 to 72. These include concerns in relation to the position of the steel framework, which gives the perception of the extension projecting forwards, dominating the Burlington rather than being a subservient addition as originally approved. The design of the balconies being virtually flush with the entire frontage of the extension on the front elevation gives the appearance of a continuous frontage without separation from the Burlington as on the approved plans. There are obstruction of views of the retained stone dressings on the Burlington due to the position of the steelwork. It's considered to be a less refined design due to the steelwork, which does dominate the frontage rather than remaining silent as originally approved. There are alterations to the roof pitch on the front and back of the extension due to raising the height of the eaves, meaning it is a different roof pitch to the Burlington itself. This creates a more awkward relationship with the original building, as well as increasing the apparent width and bulk of the proposal. Also, due to the raising of the height of the eaves, this also exacerbates the visual impacts of the upper floors and roof level and proportions of the roof, as the top floor would now finish above rather than level with the adjacent existing dormers on the Burlington. You will also note from the Conservation and Design Officer's comments of the 17th of February that concerns have been raised by officers in relation to alterations to the plinth, which includes the bricks used in its construction, the loss of openings in the plinth to the lower ground floor car park, and that the previously expressed plinth is now shown to be flush with the rest of the elevation. This does raise concerns over the visual impact and the impact on the car parking. It is therefore considered that the design of the extension has been materially diminished from the original approval, contrary to policy EM4 of the core strategy and paragraph 130 of the MPPF. In terms of heritage impacts, the level of harm caused to the heritage asset, which in this case is the Sheringham Conservation Area, has to be assessed. As a result of the unacceptable design changes, it is considered the proposal would result in a significant level of harm to that heritage asset. In accordance with paragraph 196 of the MPPF, that harm is considered to be less than substantial. Having established less than substantial harm, this has to be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. These are considered to be an increase in housing supply, contribution to the local economy, employment during construction phase, albeit for a limited period, and the reuse and refurbishment of the Burlington Hotel itself into flats. However, having carefully considered those public benefits against the harm, it is considered that the significance of the harm caused to the heritage asset would outweigh the public benefits identified. The proposal is therefore considered to be contrary to policy EN8 of the core strategy and paragraph 196 of the MPPF. The recommendation is one of refusal as set out on pages 50 and 51 of the agenda. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Officer Medler. We now pass to the local town council representative, Mr. Pegg. Good morning.
Morning.
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Pegg, from the time you start speaking, and Linda will tell you when the 3 minutes are over.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. I'm Chair of Sheringham Town Council Planning Committee. Sheringham Town Council submitted an objection to this application on 5th of Feb, and despite further revised plans from the applicant, the council sees no reason to change its view. To recap then, the proposed design changes undoubtedly detract from the originally approved design. The proposed design changes are of such significance that they cause harm to the designated asset, which is Sheringham Conservation Area, as well as the non-designated asset, the Old Burlington Hotel. The harm caused to the designated and non-designated assets is not outweighed by any public benefits accruing from the proposed changes. Of particular importance, STC is disappointed that the integrity of the originally approved design has been compromised by the extension structure proposed for the north elevation having been cited forward. The result being, as the Conservation Officer report states, trumps the original hotel. In summary, the council and the community of Sheringham will not tolerate this heritage crime and this blatant disregard for the LPA's authority. Sheringham Town Council urges Development Committee to refuse this application in accordance with paragraph 196 of the NBPF and section 72 of the Planning Act 1990. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pegg. I now pass on to Mr. Smith, who's objecting speaker. Mr. Smith, we have received your letter that was sent. Are you here? Mr. Smith, are you here? No?
He is in the meeting. Yep.
Right. Unmute. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Can we see your face, Mr. Smith, or are you not able to get yourself on camera?
I'll start video. I do apologise. Yeah. Can you see me? Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, there we are. Yes, I can see you now. Now,
Good
Mr. Smith, good morning. We received your letter,
Fine.
your email rather, I suppose, well, say in modern parlance.
You do?
But it is rather long. So if you do have 3 minutes, you're very welcome to speak for 3 minutes. But I would advise you that if you start reading the letter, we will have to cut you off mid-flow.
That's fine. I understand that. I have actually priced it for the purpose of this morning's meeting. Okay.
Thank you. So you have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking, and then you will be told when those minutes are up. Thank you. Whenever you want to.
Thank you. 3 minutes is totally inadequate for me to fully explain the complexities of this high-profile project. I spent 4 years in total refining a series of detailed designs before arriving at a final design full of sensitive design decisions before finally receiving approval as well as the Section 106 agreement. There is no excuse that the correspondence I sent to your planning department since September 2019 has never posted on the planning file. I've spent the last 18 months campaigning to bring important updated information to the intentions of your officers, seeking to protect this building from the present vandalism of the original design. This failure is totally unacceptable, procedurally incorrect, and fails to represent a balanced argument for this application. Furthermore, it has left me vulnerable to the libelous attack of incorrect claims of professional incompetence by this applicant and his agent, published in the local press and Sheringham social media sites. I'm advised that the reporter used the information on your planning file as a basis of the report. This is extremely serious, and I'm currently taking legal advice. You have a comprehensive report from Chris Youngs with a conclusive recommendation to refuse this application. This report upholds that recommendation for very good reasons. Unfortunately, not all of the serious errors I brought to your attention appear in the report before you, but I know that's now been corrected. The applicant claims that these errors and flaws in the practicality of implementing my approved, that there are errors and flaws in my design. I can assure you that this is totally false. It is being used as a tool to deflect attention away from the seriousness of the errors on site. Had there been an ounce of truth, then I can assure you I would not be a fool to sit here today asking for your support. Yet this application is presented to you as a variation, and I maintain that the errors are of such magnitude that they should be considered as a retrospective application seeking to retain unauthorised construction. The developer was advised of these errors in 2019, yet has chosen to ignore this advice and continue with construction, knowing the risks associated with doing so. This action has compounded the initial errors and added to them. And this development, this proposed development will cause irreparable damage to this highly sensitive development. Your officers have provided you with a sound argument to refuse this application. I urge you to support that recommendation and refuse this application in the long-term interest of this hugely important project. Of equal importance is that you remain consistent in upholding the planning laws which your decision-making requires of you to prevent serious injustices such as this, acting as a future precedent for others to use. I care passionately about the work I do. I will always uphold my duty of care to protect your built environment, and all I ask of you is to do the same. And I'm happy to answer any questions to assist in clarifying these significant errors in construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I now pass to the supporting speaker, Miss Debbie Sherman. Now, you also sent an extremely long and detailed email round, which we've all received. Have we all read that? Mrs. Sherman's representation. Now, do you wish to speak, Mrs. Sherman? Because if you do, you have obviously just the 3 minutes.
Yes, Chairman, I would like to speak. We also sent some slides, which I understood would be shown while I'm speaking.
Just
Right.
bear with me, Debbie, I can get those up.
Thank
Okay.
you. So I'm
If
not
you-
speaking directly to the slides, but they will be shown and I'm happy to answer any questions on them. But I
Okay,
won't be reading out the letter. I will also be proceeding my comments.
right. So you have 3 minutes from the time that you wish to speak. And as you know, we will tell you when the 3 minutes are up. Right, start when you wish.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, the nature of a Section 73 application is to facilitate change. And in this case, it's to make the scheme workable. The slides being shown to you at the moment repeat what we sent to you in our letter, and I'm happy to answer questions on them. The principal issue to consider here is whether the alleged harm resulting from the minor alterations to the design outweigh the significant public benefits of delivering 26 homes to Sheringham and bringing a landmark building back into a vibrant, viable use. I must make clear at this point that the conversion of the 20 units in the former hotel cannot be brought to market without the completion of the extension, as the parking and servicing arrangements for those new flats are provided at the lower ground level of the extension before you today. Despite 50% of the conversion units being sold of plan, they cannot complete without this scheme being built out also. There is no question the two developments are heavily reliant on one another, and refusal of this scheme will effectively sterilise the whole development, leaving the building deteriorating and unoccupied. Now, turning to the alleged matters of harm, disputes remain relating to a number of points, and I'm going to summarise the most prevalent. There's question in relation to the position of the front wall. You can see from the slides that are being shown, the main wall of the proposed extension does in fact sit behind the front wall of the former hotel building. Further, you can see from the information being presented to you that there are no horizontal steels linking the balconies with the corner posts. They will be entirely separate and set away from the main facade of the building. The cornice will be reinstated and other architectural detailing will be readily visible on the principal elevation of the former hotel. Overall, there's been a suggestion of the dilution of the design, but we hope you agree that having viewed the comparative plans and elevations, that the proposed scheme will have a reduced impact with balconies and a roof overhang that project out less than the approved scheme and a high quality of design that respects the host building. It's important to note here that the proposed materials have already been accepted and approved. As acknowledged in the officer report, we've incorporated many revisions to the scheme to satisfy officers, including the lattice work seen on the submitted plans. The applicant's heritage team has concerns about the architectural value of this feature. And we have produced an alternative scheme, which you can see on our slides, with cleaner lines, which you may agree is more appropriate. Nevertheless, if you consider the lattice work is warranted, the scheme will be built out in that form. Overall, the approval of this extension will enable the timely completion of the entire development, providing demonstrable benefits to housing delivery in the district, as well as
3 minutes.
of the former hotel building.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now pass to our local member, Councillor Withington, if you'd like to give your presentation.
Good morning. I've only got a few comments to make. Firstly, I'd like to reiterate what the Town Council has said. I have received many comments along those lines from residents and with similar concerns. So wholly feel that this is very much I think we could describe it as the grand old lady of Sheringham, the only one that's left after the loss of our wonderful hotels that were on the Edwardian ones on the seafront. So she is very much our antiquity that we have left. And I think restoring and ensuring we maintain that ethos of that hotel is important. Equally, though, I think I've had an equal number of concerns about us ending up in a situation similar to the Shanex, where we have a blot on the landscape continuing for many years. So I would urge that this is resolved in a way that maintains that integrity of that building. And I think that's what the community very much would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Must just tell the members that Officer Young, Chris Young, is available. I believe he still is, Matt, isn't he? I can't see him on my thing here. To answer questions. Is that correct?
He's here, yep.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to. Now, over to members. Who wishes to speak? Good Lord, nobody wishes to speak. Come along, members. Who wants to speak? Right.
I'll make a start if you like, Chairman.
Right. So we've got Paul and then Nigel Lloyd. Anybody else got their
Councillor
hands
Kershaw.
up? Right. Richard Kershaw. I'll just put your names down because it helps me then. Is that it for the moment? Right. Straight over then to Paul, if you'd like to start.
Thank you, Chair. Just another long, sorry saga. We seem to be getting a number of those at the present time. We know this construction site's been something of an eyesore in that very prominent part of Sheringham now for several years. I'm not convinced, though, that this means we should accept any old changes now just to ensure that it's completed quickly. I can't see any real clarity as to why these new steel sections were not built to the approved plans. We've got no indication as to why that wasn't feasible or what went on that they weren't actually built. The applicant's claiming structural limitations in their presentations, yet the original architect is very rightly defending his work. Do we know whether the original builders actually followed the plans? The current developer insists the answer to their perceived problems involves these rather significant changes to the approved design. Why can't they just remediate any faulty work and go back to the original design? It seems illogical to me. Obviously, I'm not a builder or structural engineer, so I'm speaking as a layperson. The proposal in front of us involves significant changes, and our conservation design team clearly argue that these are unacceptable and damaging to the conservation area. They clearly find valid reasons against EN4, EN8, and paragraphs 193 and 196 of the NPPF that are not acceptable. We need to accept their professional opinion on this. On the other hand, I'm sure we'd like to see this bill completed in a fairly timely manner and the site back in use. Certainly that would be a public benefit. I don't think it outweighs the serious issues relating to the amended design. We have a clear report and conclusions, Chairman, and I would happy to propose acceptance of the recommendation to refuse. Thank you.
So you're proposing acceptance.
Correct, Chairman.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor Heinrich. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Heinrich has made some of the points I was going to, but I have one question really. You see, unless I'm mistaken, I just don't understand why this isn't been presented to us this morning as a retrospective application, because it seems as though, much of the structure is in place already. And I just wondered if anybody could answer that.
I think it's part retrospective. It does actually state that. Is that not so, Joe?
I can confirm it is not retrospective, Chairman.
Yeah, it is part retrospective, Nigel.
Apologies, I read it as an amendment. So no, I'm fine, and I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendation on this. And, so I'm happy to second it if you ask me to.
Yeah, okay, no seconding. Thank you. Richard, of Councillor Kershaw.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd actually like to thank Officers Medler and Chris Young for the work they put in on this. It's very detailed, it's very accurate, and it's very well drafted. Thank you. I think this is a very important building. I would hate to see it go the way of the Shannocks. I appreciate the need for housing, but I can't. I would have to go with the officers on this. I just do not understand why the original plans were accepted have not been followed, and I can't see the demerit in those plans. So I will have to happily actually vote with the officers on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? I do have, right. Councillor Yassini.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've listened very carefully to everybody. I've made notes and balanced the situation. May I just say that no matter what decision is made today via the officer's excellent reports, it's by no means reflecting that we don't want to see this building in use. But it has to be done appropriately and within the framework. That's it.
Oh, thank you, Andreas. That's very quick for you. So does anybody else wish to speak before we pass to the vote?
Madam Chairman, I don't wish to speak on this, just say that we had a short power cut, so I missed part of the discussion. Although I could vote, I gather, I don't think I should in this, so I will abstain in this, but it's for no reason other than the fact I missed a chunk of the officer's report and also the discussion on it. Okay, I don't think it'd be fair to vote on that.
Thank you. That's very sensible of you. Yes, you have missed a bit. So anyway, thank you for reporting that, Tom. We now pass the vote. Let's just make sure, does anybody else wish to speak before we vote? No. So this is to accept the officer's recommendation for refusal. It's proposed by Councillor Heinrich and seconded by Councillor Lloyd. This will be a recorded vote, so it's for, against, or abstain. Matt, over to you. So don't forget, this is for refusal. So this means it's with the officer's refusal of the application, right?
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Sorry. For.
Councillor Cushing.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Fredericks.
For.
Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
For.
Councillor Varley.
For.
And Councillor Yassimi. Sorry, Councillor Yassimi, for you. So that's 12 in favour, no abstention, or one abstention from Tom, and 0 against.
Thank you. So that has been refused. The application has been refused. I must say, I pass to our Assistant Director just to make a little comment here, please, Philip.
Thank you, Chairman and members. Clearly, the refusal of a part retrospective proposal is a significant matter. I understand all that members have said today with regard to trying to bring this building back into a use. That's clearly very important, and I will make sure that that is reflected in the post-decision discussions that we hold with the applicant. Clearly, there is an issue that relates to the potential of enforcement action. There is an issue that relates to the potential of a planning appeal. We will continue to update members, and I will open the door and be pleased to hear from the applicants with regard to the outcomes of today's decision and their proposed actions. But clearly, members, there are a number of options that we will now pursue with the applicant, and our intention will be to bring about the best possible outcomes for this building and for the wider local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. That's very well put. As we've said, none of us want to see this building disappear. It's been there. It's an Edwardian part of Sheringham's heritage. We just want to see the best for it. Thank you. And thank you for the speakers. And we'll now pass on to the second application. So if you wish to leave, please leave now. If you've finished, Mr. Pegg and Mr. Smith and Miss Sherman. Now, this is page, just a minute, let me have a fiddle with my doodah here. Page 1, Ludham, PF/19/0991. And this is being presented by James Mann for Tracy. Tracy wrote a very, very comprehensive report. Thank you for that. I forgot to say thank you, Tracy, at the pre-planning meeting. That was extremely remiss of me, because I know how much effort goes into this. Joe and Chris also did extremely good reports, and apologies again. You know, these take a heck of a lot of time and effort. I think we do on the committee realize how much time goes into these. So over to you. James is presenting this.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I'd just reiterate that, yeah, thank you, Tracy, for the sort of comprehensive report. So it makes my job much easier. I can just refer you to the pages of the agenda. So yeah, this is a proposal under PF 19/0991 for 12 market dwellings, essentially 11 single-storey dwellings and one of 1.5 storey, an associated access off Willow Way and a footpath off School Road. One thing I would just highlight, first of all, we've had one further public comment since the agenda was published. This raised concerns regarding flood risk on the site, both in terms of groundwater and surface water flooding. This was a comment that was also previously made through the consultation period. So just by way of a bit of site context, Chair, am I able to share my screen? I have a couple of, just a map and a layout plan. Is that okay?
Matt, have you got them there?
No, I think, James, you should be able to do it directly, shouldn't you? That's fine.
Okay.
Let me know.
That's okay, James.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, fine,
good.
whenever you're ready.
If it works, probably.
Oh, there you go, look.
Can everyone see that? So you can see my paint skills as well with the drawing. It's very, very impressive. So yeah, just a bit of site context. So situated to the northwest of Ludham, proposed access, as I said, off Willow Way with a pedestrian footpath through to School Road. And you can see the sort of proximity to the church, which I'll come on to a bit later in the presentation. So essentially what I was going to do was just sort of leave up the layout plan, if I can make that a bit smaller, just so you can get an idea of the site whilst I go through the main points. So just a bit of history. So the site was allocated through the 2011 Site Allocations Development Plan document under policy LUD01. And this set out several sort of key development considerations within that, such as no more than 15 dwellings on the site, 50% affordable housing, provision of open space, high quality landscaping, particularly along the sort of western boundary of the site. The form and layout to mitigate those impacts on the church, as I just mentioned, from School Road to the north of the site, along with mitigation of the habitat's impact on European sites, and adequate demonstration that there would be capacity within the sewage treatment works, and a submission of a satisfactory flood risk assessment. Members should note that there was a previous planning application on this site that was refused back in 2017 for primarily not being in accordance with all of those development considerations in the policy, but obviously members should also be aware this application should be considered on its own merits against that policy LUD 101 and the core strategies as taken as a whole. So I'll just go through some of the main points in the main concerns and the points of policy LUD 01. So the first point to mention is that this is a scheme for 12 dwellings, so it's in accordance with that no more than 15 dwellings. However, it does not provide 50% affordable housing on site as required through policy LUD 01. This is set out in more detail on pages 17 and 18 of your agenda, but essentially they're proposing to provide equivalent of 25% affordable housing as an off-site contribution. And this is also subject to an overage clause, so maybe an uplift of that, and that's set out on pages 36 and 37 of your agenda. It should be noted that this monies would go towards a pot which is held by the strategic housing team within North Norfolk District Council, and that money is then used for affordable housing schemes within the district. It should also be noted, so it's not in strict accordance with policy LUD 01, but this was subject to stringent sort of viability assessment and therefore is in accordance with policy HO1 of the adopted core strategy. And this 25% offsite contribution would be secured through a legal agreement. So whilst not strictly in accordance with LUD 01, it is in accordance with the plan taken as a whole. The second point that I would sort of raise is that this is seeking to provide a large area of open space on the site in excess of that required through the open space calculator. It's also shown in the 2019 open space study that there is a deficit for amenity green space within the parish. So there's a significant sort of public benefit in that regard. Further details set out on page 37 of your agenda pack in regard to the offsite contributions towards play space, recreation and allotments that the applicant would also be making. Further to this, high quality landscaping. So as you can see from this plan, there's extensive landscaping along this western boundary and landscaping along all sides of the site. And that's been informed by the landscape visual impact assessment and has been sort of detailed through various consultations on this site, taking in regard to the historic environment and the wider landscape context. This is set out in more detail on page 28 of your agenda. The next point I would like to raise is just the potential impact on the views from School Road to the church. Obviously, this was acknowledged when the site was allocated back in 2011, but there has been sort of extensive work in regard to orientation of these buildings, ensuring that these are all single story, especially on this side of the site. So that those views will not be impeded significantly. So it is set out on pages 20 and 21 of your agenda that there would be moderate, less than substantial harm on the grade 1 listed building, and then a conclusion on page 38 of your agenda sets out that the public benefits considered through this scheme would considerably outweigh this moderate level of less than substantial harm on the heritage asset. Further, the applicant, as set out on page 37, is agreeing to a contribution towards the habitats regulation assessment, so the mitigation of those, the visitor pressure impact on the SPA and SAC, and that's also the conclusion of the habitats regulation assessment that was done as part of this site. So if I come on quickly to probably the most sort of raised issues through the consultation period. So in regard to sewerage capacity, Anglian Water have confirmed that there is capacity within the network and that work was undertaken in 2019 through their AMP7 document that also set out there was £7,000 of investment into this, and that takes into account planned growth up until 2036, including obviously this site. And the HRA for this application also concludes that there would be the capacity, and also this would not have an adverse impact on the integrity of any of the habitat sites in regard to that. And that's set out further information on page 35 of your agenda. Coming on to surface water flood risk. So the site is mostly within flood zone 1, but there is in the southeast corner of the site an area of flood zone 2. It's been supported by a flood risk assessment, which essentially sets out that they would try to mitigate this through the use of this SUDS feature in the middle of the site, and also through permeable paving on the driveways. And that the basin itself would account for a 1 in 100 year event plus climate change. So it's able to take account of that and would raise no further flood risk issues on the site, and would also take into account the pollution control and water quality to ensure there's no harm on the groundwater as well. This is set out in further detail on pages 34 and 35 of your agenda. Comments have also been raised in regard to amenity, so the proximity of these dwellings essentially against adjacent dwellings. It has been set out quite substantially in Tracy's report on pages 23 to 26 of the agenda, and essentially concludes that this would all be in accordance with the distances set out in the design guide, and therefore in accordance with policy EN4, and also subject to those conditions in regard to landscaping to ensure that there would be the suitable boundary treatments on all of these sides, so that there would be no impact or loss of amenity in regard to existing and proposed new residents. And the final thing I should mention, just that highways are requiring a condition for a traffic regulation order to limit the speed of Willow Way to 20 miles an hour. Other than that, they have no objections to the proposal. And then the planning obligations in full are set out on pages 36 and 37 of your report. So this would be secured by way of a Section 106 agreement. And the recommendation therefore set out on page 38 of your report is one of approval subject to the completion of that Section 106 and subject to all of the conditions which are adequately proposed on that page 38. And if you have any questions about anything, I'm happy to, me and Tracy will be happy to answer any of the questions that you have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. If you could remove the picture now, please.
Yeah, let's see if I can.
So I get everybody's faces up in front of me.
Okay, stop. Okay.
Thank you.
Should have done that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got a local parish speaker at all? Did anybody register? No, I don't. Linda?
No, we've got no parish speaker on this one.
Right, thank you. We do have an objecting speaker. Good morning, Mrs. Reid. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
You have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking, and we will tell you when your 3 minutes are up. So when you begin, when you feel.
Can I just ask a question first? I don't know if I've got my orientations wrong, but to me, the development, is it on the eastern side of the field? Because the other councillor has said it's on the west. But according to the orientation of my property, it should be on the east.
Tracy, do you know? You were the one.
Willow Way is to the east of the field, not the west.
Tracy, are you there? No, obviously not.
Yeah, sorry, Willow Way is to the east.
Yeah, it's just that you said it was on the west. That's all. I just wanted to make sure that
yep.
I've got my, yeah.
No, sorry, that's my fault.
Sorry.
Okay.
First of all, I've never used Zoom and I've never spoken in public, so forgive me if I get it wrong. Obviously, my concern is for drainage from wastewater and surface water, and it's about water displacement. I did send in an email on the 6th of March to add to my objection. I purchased my property in November, and the searches come back that we are at a moderate to high risk of flooding from surface water. My land sits at least 3 feet below the field, so Pike's Nursery, where I live, is at a much lower level. And I must say, my garden is already at saturation point for most of the year. You do squelch across the back lawn. When my house was built in 1990, the only accommodation for surface water drainage was a ditch that runs along the eastern side behind my boundary, which hasn't been maintained, which really isn't helping. Obviously, the field is a huge part of absorbing this surface water, and any hard standing, I feel, would have an adverse effect on all the properties along the eastern boundary. not least Willow Way. I know Anglian Water have said that's all okay, but every time there's heavy rain, it backs up to the toilets and there's been lots of complaints. So I don't see how adding more sewage would help. Just as a quick sideline, perhaps you'd like to look at the expert advice of Anglian Water on the development of Bayton Road in Acle, where they put 18 houses on a corner. The residents were in for 3 months and they had to move out for 9 months with catastrophic results from flooding. I just don't, I just feel that it's just going to cause ultimate problems, both with surface water and wastewater. It worries me that this is put into the corner of the field. To me, it leaves the field open for further development and change of plans in the future. And if that is put under hard standing, whether it's permeable or not, when the field isn't coping as it is, I just feel if that then opens up to further development, it will just be catastrophic to many of the villages that live in the vicinity. They are our homes. I would sort of like you to consider that they are everything we've worked for. They are our homes, and it's not fair to put other people's properties at risk for a development like this. I do understand we need housing. I do totally get that, but I just really don't feel it should be at the expense of other people's, everything that other people have worked for.
Thank you, Mrs. Reid.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a supporting speaker, Mrs. Bergen. Melissa, are you there? Matt, have we got Mrs. Bergen?
Not that I can see, Chair.
Chair, Mrs. Bergen has asked for her comments to be read out as she's unable to attend the meeting.
Right, so James, have you got them?
Yeah, I do have them, Chair. Would you like me to read them out?
Please, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so let's see. So this was, applicant statement. So we would like to thank the planning officer for all her hard work in assessing the application and preparing the committee report, as well as the committee for taking the time to hear the application. The application presented today is the result of several years of work and has been a wholly iterative process undertaken between the applicant and the council to propose the best scheme possible. Although the site is allocated for up to 15 dwellings, only 12 are being sought under this application in order to reflect the edge of village location and provide for public open space and views into the open countryside. The position of the application site necessitates all but one of the dwellings to be bungalows to reflect the prevailing character of the immediate area, avoid an overbearing impact on existing neighbours, and to maintain views of the Grade 1 listed St Catherine's Church, both from within the site and from School Road. The development will provide a good contribution to the housing supply and the housing mix required in the district. 4 of the dwellings will be small with just 1 or 2 bedrooms. 5 will have 3 bedrooms and 3 will have 4 bedrooms. Highways access will be onto Willow Way, which should enable good integration spatially and functionally with the rest of the village compared to access off School Road. Traffic generated by the development will be modest, and the sustainable transport options to and from the site will help to reduce reliance on the car. There will be no adverse impact on highway safety or the operational efficiency of the highway network. As local services and public transport are all within walking or cycling distance, future residents will be able to walk or cycle to them, which will help to meet a number of social and environmental objectives, including the promotion of a healthy and active lifestyle and the creation of opportunities for interaction with other villages, which in turn will promote greater community cohesion. Given that the future occupiers are likely to make use of the local services in the village, such as the shop, this will help to maintain the viability of these services and enhance the vitality of the village itself. The layout provides for a public open space, public open green space central to the development, which will comprise of new and varied habitat, including an attenuation pond for surface water runoff and newly provided mixed native species hedgerow along the periphery of the site. This should result in a net ecological gain. The open space will provide a good community focus, with it being visible by each of the new dwellings. A footpath will be provided through the site from Willow Way to School Road via more open space.
James, are you nearly finished? Because
Nearly there. Well, there's a little bit more.
because I hadn't realised that this was a.
Would you like me to just
a supporting statement from the agents?
Would you like me to just sort of go through the conclusion section, or?
Yeah, because I think you must be nearly at your 3 minutes. So
yeah, okay. So finally, the proposal includes a number of planning obligations towards community infrastructure, including significant contribution towards the provision of off-site affordable housing, funding for a monitoring programme for the newly designated nature conservation sites, and a contribution towards children's play, recreational parks and allotments. We hope the committee shares our views regarding the benefits of the application to Ludham and the district as a whole, and that the application is approved subject to completion of the Section 106 agreement. We thank you again for your time and await your resolution.
Thank you, James. You whizzed through that remarkably well. We now go to the local member, Adam, Councillor Varley. Adam, if you wish to speak, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would first like to thank James for the presentation and Tracy Meachin for the substantial report. I would also just like to note my thanks to Rob Parkinson, who is no longer at NNDC. He, along with everyone involved in this application process, has been fantastic. I've been closely involved with this application for some time now, and the comments which I made in October last year on page 12 still stands. Ludham certainly has the capability of expanding and becoming a bigger community. Ludham is sustainable with many amenities and a special and caring community. The overall design and layout elements and mitigated aspects of footpaths and screening have been worked out closely between the developer and officers. The overall development fits in with the characteristics of Ludham, and I believe does not have any detrimental impact in that respect. The Norfolk Broad parishes can suffer substantially from flood risk and subsequent foul drainage issues. It is important to note that this earmarked site is within flood risk zone 1, but does have immediate correlation with flood risk zone 2. But I'm glad to see that the risk assessments have been done and the mitigated measures which are planned will be effective and certainly be in accordance to policy EN10. Most of the correspondence from residents and the strong objections stem from concerns over the foul drainage systems. Residents in Willow Way have stated the ongoing foul drainage issues and surface water issues that they have had to face. The previous application was rejected in 2017 due to there being a lack of capacity for foul drainage, and it is now good to hear that Anglian Water deem the area to have better capacity. Now, with regards to the development, it is important to take into account the overall issues of flooding and foul drainage, and whilst it is noted that Anglian Water have recognised these issues and increased the capacity, as stated on page 35, I want to seek assurances through this process that all necessary improvements are made to ensure that no implications arise on Willow Way or other parts of the parish due to this development. Contributions from a Section 106 or SIL money should be given to the community to investigate surface water issues in Willow Way to make sure that we do not exacerbate this. There needs to be a financial mechanism for any uncertainty. And I would just like to thank Giles Bloomfield for his comments and advice on this matter. The provision for affordable housing does leave me feeling disappointed. The viability study has been determined, and although it is deemed appropriate for 3 affordable dwellings, it is worrying to not see them on the earmarked site. Now, this aspect does depart from LUD 01 mentioned on page 18. And the worry is heightened by past instances of housing associations having had a lacking for suitable provision for affordable housing in the local vicinities. As such, they're being built where deemed suitable. This is troubling. We now need this housing to be kept local. Now, although this aspect does depart from the policy, I'm trying to see it as finely balanced. We need affordable housing, and although it isn't in the original specification as planned and on site, this does go towards our commitment of providing a range of housing options for the residents of North Norfolk. And I am dedicated in ensuring that we as a council provide this. I am glad to see that North Norfolk District Council will be involved with this provision, and I ask them to really work with the local parish council and myself and other knowledgeable sources to find a suitable location for this housing. This needs to be within the local eastern area of our district. I just finally want to say, Madam Chairman, I have been involved with this for a long time now and lobbied by both the parish council and local residents whom are on both sides of the argument. But I can say that throughout this process, I have remained impartial, and although clearly share the concerns on key aspects, I'm willing to listen to the full discussion here today, and if permitted, vote alongside my fellow committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Varley. Now we go to the members. Who wishes to speak? I saw a hand before. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if you've noticed in the past, but I tend to jump up and down every time affordable housing comes up. It's frustrating that we never seem to get quite enough that we deserve. However, in this particular case, I am sort of semi-content because we are, in fact, having a good mix of elderly and infirm housing. So I'm sort of a little bit happy about that. However, I would like more affordable housing.
Is that it, Gerard?
Sorry, do you want me to go on?
No,
that's me finished. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that. Andrew, please. Andrew Brown, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I would like to support this application. We have paved the way by identifying it in the site allocations policy as LUD 01. I note that the parish council are in favour, and I note that Councillor Adam Varley has spoken positively about the application. I have got two concerns. One is over the affordable housing off-site contribution. I doubt whether the Section 106 agreement can be so specific as to ensure that investment in affordable housing is within the parish boundary of Ludham in future. And this is where a Section 106 contribution can almost operate as, in the nature of a community infrastructure levy, in that the affordable units can be built well outside the district. And I am sure if there is demand in Ludham that we should try and build within the parish boundary. So that is one concern that I have. I'm not sure whether the head of planning or the chief legal officer can give any assurances on that or any clarity on that. Secondly, I do share the concerns about the foul sewerage provision. I'm aware that until planning is granted, that Anglian Water are not minded to engage seriously in the planning process, which may be one of our shortcomings of our planning law. But I do hope that Anglian Water, in the representations that they've made, are serious in providing capacity for foul sewerage to this development. And just one final point, Chair. As regards the open space contributions, I do hope that the council will feed back to parish councillors when these contributions are made, and to which schemes they will be applied, because it is a frustration in my experience that these contributions, whilst we applaud them and welcome them, do tend to take some time to come on stream, and we lose track of payments which should be invested in the locality. That's all I've got to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Noel, do you want to say anything about this business of the affordable housing? I do know that this is not an exception site, so we can't insist. It has caused a lot of problems in the past. I've brought it up many times, as have many of my fellow members, that the good point here is that the housing is being passed to North Norfolk, that one of the housing sections. So what is the legal position on this?
Well, ideally, affordable housing should be provided on site as part of the development proposal, and that's what the broad policy obligations are. In this regard, or in this application, the affordable housing contribution is being provided by way of a financial contribution to the local authority. In terms of a legal agreement, the landowner enters into the legal agreement to bind themselves to make particular commitments, which include or can include financial contributions. In this case, my understanding, a financial contribution to the North Norfolk District Council for its overall strategy in the provision of affordable housing. Obviously, it's within the interests and objectives of the council to deliver that affordable housing locally, but it is also subject to market forces and the ability to secure appropriate sites and appropriate construction. I hope that assists.
Thank you, Noel. I think that's put it very plainly. I must just point out, before I pass on to the other speakers, Councillor Varley mentioned Giles Bloomfield, who is the senior engineer at the Internal Drainage Board, the Broads Internal Drainage Board, Broads, and is very concerned about surface water drainage, which is one of the main factors which influences the overflows of sewage, etc., where a condition is allowed for surface water to be sent into the sewers, and then when we get huge downpours of water, the sewage system overflows, and a LEP, which is the provision for the Anglian water to dump basically sewage straight into our rivers and dikes. So so just take that in mind. That's what I just wanted to say. James is very knowledgeable on this. Now, thank you for that, Andrew, and thank you for that, Noel. Councillor Fredericks, Wendy, you wish to speak.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the incredible report that you put together, officers. Yeah, like Gerald, you can kind of predict what I'm going to say. So affordable housing, with these payments that we have in our pot, it doesn't mean that these houses are going to be built in Ludham. And as you see, there's quite a number of people on the waiting list that desire to live in London or are local families. Now, where are these affordable houses going to be built? If this site is taken up, I don't know how many sites are allocated in Ludham, then where are we going to build these affordable housing? The site can accommodate 15 houses, so why aren't we putting the affordable housing there? It just seems to me that, again, we've got a scheme which doesn't give local families and local people the opportunity to stay in their village. So it's all very well putting it into a pot, but what we're doing is we're facilitating housing estates which cater for market housing and not for people that are actually wanting to live in their own village. And that's 3 houses we could put on that site. So I am really bitterly disappointed not to see where these affordable housing options are going to take place and what form these affordable housing options are going to be. So I'm really bitterly disappointed, because I know if that was Munsley, I would be really, really furious that, again, we've got market housing and no housing for the young families or people that want to stay in their villages. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Philip, you wish to speak?
I was going to defer to Jeff Lyon on this, Chairman.
Okay, Jeff, do you want to speak?
Good morning, committee. Yeah, I completely understand the point. If we're providing housing, we want to have the housing, affordable housing, as close to where we're delivering the market housing. Where's the public benefit if we're not providing homes that people actually need and want? The benefit of having the money, the £195,000 that has been talked about as part of 106, that money would go into a pot that's managed by the district council. So we have a housing enabling team here at North Norfolk whose primary role is to engage with parish councils and landowners to deliver those exception housing sites that help meet the council's affordable housing need. So there are many sites across the district where we're looking to enable exception housing sites. Now, if we have this money available, that can help enable a site in Ludham or an adjoining parish. Obviously, the housing enabling team will work with Councillor Varley and the parish council to find a solution for Ludham. If it can't be found in Ludham, then obviously we'll widen that out to other areas. But I think the first point is to look at Ludham in the first instance and see what we can do there. But what we don't want to do is say that if it doesn't go into Ludham, it goes nowhere. We want to make sure we don't miss out on the opportunity for delivering affordable housing across the district. But Ludham will be the first point of call, and then if we can't deliver there, we'll look at that as a wider area. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. I hope that just gives you a little bit of relief there, Wendy.
Well, it does, Madam Chair, but I still think that that system is flawed, particularly when we've got this land available here to make use of. I just think that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the reason the 15 were rejected before was because of the sewerage system couldn't cope. I just mentioned that. Councillor Heinrich.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've still got one or two concerns. I'm broadly in favour of it, but I've still got one or two concerns. I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in Anglian water and flood mitigation after the fiasco in North Walsham recently. So, you know, if they can't get a relatively simple one right, what can they going to do here when we're dealing with an area that's basically built on a low island in the middle of a marsh? So the same thing applies with regard to surface water and other flooding issues. I mean, we've had some examples this winter of very wet weather followed by tidal locking, and that's likely to occur more frequently with rises in sea level. So I really want to be 100% sure that officers are happy that the flood mitigation schemes proposed will handle this, certainly for the 100-year events. And then affordable housing, I share everything that Councillor Mancini-Boyle and Councillor Fredericks have already said. I mean, 3 houses is just about adequate if we accept the viability studies, and we've obviously checked them, our officers have anyway. But I would like to put a mark on that we really must make our best endeavours to ensure that these affordable houses are in Ludham or in an area very close to Ludham. We cannot see that these ended up being built on the western side of the district. The need is in the Ludham area, and that's where they should be. And I think we need to put a firm marker down on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Councillor Heinrich. Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Angie?
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Good morning, members. Like several speakers today, and I don't suppose this will come to any surprise to you, Madam Chairman, I have extreme concerns in respect of flooding. I have extreme concerns in respect of foul water drainage. I have severe worries about surface water drainage, In particular, the Norfolk County Council is the lead local flood authority and seems not too bright about keeping the drains clear, which has caused flooding all over the district with the heavy amount of rains that we have suffered all the way through this winter. At this particular time, those of you that join me on the drainage boards know that the water table is exceptionally high. And again, I have very little confidence in Anglian Water. I think the only way that we can do this is to be really, building control must be really, really tough if this is to go through, to make sure that all these worries that we know we have the evidence, and it's all very well saying that they're mitigation, this, that, and the other. It will not work in the current climate. I have concerns, Madam Chairman. I don't quite know how I'm going to vote on this yet. I think I might even do the worst thing awful and abstain.
Oh dear, thank you, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. It's not often I've heard those words coming from you. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Tom.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it's an interesting application. Obviously, there was one before that was turned down, but I do think, sort of reading it and listening, the applicants have made a lot of effort to address concerns from conservation design about the look and feel, also highways for the access. But I mean, they've done a lot. They've changed eaves, changed the fenestration and so on, and the types and materials. So I think that they've gone a long way and put a lot of effort into doing that. They've lowered the density. It could be a higher density. They've lowered the density, and it does accord with the policy of LUD01. So and it is a lesser development, fits in. There's a mixture, reading from the report and also from what I know of Ludham, there is a mixture of housing. So this is an attempt to sort of fit in well and respect anything built near a church of that antiquity. Obviously will affect it in some way. It doesn't necessarily detract. We can think of sort of churches and so on with buildings right up against them, and that sometimes improves the look. So it's very, very different, but on balance, and affordable housing obviously is important. I think the section 106, I think it's a matter of us being fairly robust and but using that money to the best effect in the local area. So it's a lesser development, but it's a well thought out development with different house types that's taken into account the advice and guidance of officers of this council, and on balance, I actually support it. Thank you.
Are you proposing, Tom?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to propose that it's accepted. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Andreas, you wish to speak? Councillor Yassini.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Councillor Fitzpatrick must have been reading my mind. Yes, I was going to replicate what he said about the thoroughness of this application. And I have listened very carefully. But I also, may I highlight one or two things, please?
Yes, of course.
I agree with Councillor Wendy Frederick and Councillor Gerard Mancini Boyle about the affordable housing. I'm also concerned about that, so I'd like to raise that. Also, thank you very much, Councillor Adam Varley, for such a substantial coverage of your area and concerning this application. That was brilliant. Yes, the only thing that keeps coming back into my mind is the flooding. I think it's a very serious problem, and I think it should be looked at and covered substantially concerning this application.
Thank you, Andreas. Before Officer Rowson speaks, I would like to just say that, oh, right, Chris, in a minute, that I believe Anglian Water has a legal obligation to always say, yes, they can accept the sewage. Is this right, Noel?
Morning, Chair again. Yes, they're under a legal duty to provide sewage services to new development.
So whether local people think it's going to be adequate or not, Anglian Water have to provide whatever they can.
Well,
Yes.
they have to provide it. Also, they are the experts in the provision of those services and should ensure suitable capacity.
Yes. Well, we'll pass swiftly over that, but thank you for that. That's the legal definition. Christopher, you wanted to speak before Philip comes in.
Yeah, just very briefly, Madam Chairman, thank you. When you read through, I have to say, I think it's actually a superb report. So I'd like to just add my thanks to the officers who put this together. It also does appear to be, I think, in the words of Councillor Varley, a meticulous development in terms of the planning that's gone into it. Two things do stand out, and I'm not going to repeat because I think other councillors have very well articulated the concerns around affordable housing and surface drainage. So, but obviously the previous development committee were minded to refuse. I think, to my view, probably enough has been done to, from my point of view, to support it. I just have a reminder quick, so I know we've focused on those two major issues. I appreciate this is a really minor issue by comparison, but I do, it's the first time since I've been on the development committee I've seen anything around archaeology in terms of being in there. Just wondered how that is, perhaps you, Madam Chairman, can give me some advice in terms of how that is normally mitigated. Do we have our own Norfolk Time team that go in there and look at these things?
Thank you. I mean, I will ask Philip about that, but I do know that there is a team from Norfolk County Council which is automatically warned when new development is coming in, so that they can appraise the site. Is that all right, Chris? I think that's,
yes, that's fine.
That's fine. Basically what happens. Are you seconding the application, Christopher?
Yes, I'm happy to do so.
All right, let's put you down. Philip, you wish to speak?
The one thing I can answer pretty much unequivocally in this matter is archaeology, Chairman. Yes, we consult with the County Council. They are our statutory consultee on matters of archaeology, and the issues relating to mitigation and exploration before development takes place are undertaken by the applicants at their cost, and those are submitted to the council and then discharged in liaison with the County Council. So hopefully that's a good, clear answer, and you now understand exactly how we approach matters of archaeology. The reason I asked to speak, Chairman, members, was this. I appreciate this is a really difficult decision. This is a local plan allocation that has been with us for a good number of years. It's proven really difficult to get off the blocks. This is not a straightforward site to bring forward. I think the debate on affordable housing is well understood by officers. If you vote to approve this application today, we will work through that section 106 and we will do our very best to ensure that this is delivered locally and that it is available to that community. That is our firm commitment. But we must work within the legal constraints, and if we cannot find land available in this parish to deliver that affordable housing, then I regret we may have to look elsewhere if we're getting towards the end of the time triggers involved. I need to be honest and clear with you on that matter. And I need to be clear with you that we must pay careful adherence to viability. Beyond that, members, I know that foul water drainage and flood risk is a serious issue here. Officers like you have to put our faith in the technical reports that are received and the engineers' submissions that are made to the council in consultation. You can see very careful consideration by officers on this matter. We believe that although this is finely balanced, that suitable mitigation can be provided on flood risk and foul water. However, I know this is a difficult decision for you, but I reassure you that that mitigation and consideration has been made by officers. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Officer Rowson. Well, we're now getting, does anybody else wish to speak before we go to the vote? Yes, Councillor Varley, you're going to as a member now. an ordinary
Thank you,
member.
Madam Chairman, I always come in quite late to the discussion. I'm obviously wary of going over what I've already stated. But in regards of putting our trust into Anglian Water, which we should do, I just obviously want to stress the point I made that there are issues in Willow Way and other parts of the parish of Ludham. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're very fully aware of that. And if this application does go ahead, that we are able to lobby along with Norfolk County Council and the BIDB and look into these issues and make sure that the issues are not exacerbated by this development. Can we put a clause or something in this? Would that be possible?
I'm not sure about that, Adam. I would have to go to, I don't know that it's possible. Philip, is this possible at this stage, or can this be discussed as and when?
Chairman, it would be open to members to instruct officers to add an informative to any decision notice. Clearly, we've just spoken, we've talked about the issues surrounding the potential difficulties of foul water and surface water drainage here. If members wish for an informative to be added to the decision notice, then myself and the case officers can return to you as chairman, and we can agree the drafting of that fine wording on an informative. It will be useful if members are minded to support such a proposal if you give us some details of exactly what areas you would like that informative to cover. I must say it is an informative, it isn't a condition, it is simply there to inform the developer and the statutory undertakers.
Okay, how do we feel about this? Has anybody got anything to say, or apart from Adam? Yes, Angie.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I thank Mr. Rowson for his advice, and I'm feeling a little bit more content than I was originally. But I do think if he is able to help us with some wording to ensure that Anglian Water fulfills their duties in a speedy manner, and that the lead local flood authority actually monitors the situation as things progress. I don't know if that's helpful to anybody.
Adam, did you wish to say anything about?
Well, I think Councillor Fitch-Tillett has basically just summed it all up. I feel much more confident knowing that we have something in writing and informative. I think, yeah, that needs to be the solution going forward.
Right. Andreas, you were nodding and waving a hand. Is that you just
No,
nodding in agreement?
with Councillor
Good, excellent.
Philip.
Thank you. Philip, do we need this written informative note now, or are you going to present it?
Chairman, my suggestion is that we've taken a temperature. I notice Councillor Kershaw has yet to speak. He may speak on this issue. We will review the recording, and what we will do as officers is we will put a draft informative to yourself, and I also suggest to the ward member that will be added to the decision notice. Obviously, it has to be a legal set of words and terminology, so please excuse if we don't use exactly the terms that you've expressed, but we can certainly agree with you as chair and the board member before any final decision is issued.
Thank you. Now, Philip, are you saying that we're not going to vote on this, or that we're voting with this informative coming in afterwards?
What I'm saying is the informative will be added to the decision notice that is being prepared under the officer's recommendation. Okay. If members vote in favour of it, please do vote. It's very important. We need a vote today.
Yeah, it just came over. I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to have a deferral here. Richard, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important we have an informative. I think we're all experiencing issues with Anglian Water across all our wards. I know it's been a very wet winter, but I think the more we put this on record, the more we push, and I think it has to be in the public record. So I welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I remind those of you who live in the west of our district that those of us in the east are basically living on a large puddle. So it is extremely important that flooding is taken really seriously, and the IDB are doing their best. Also, please, can I remind you that Anglian Water is basically only responsible for sewerage. They're not responsible for surface water drainage. The SUDs, etc., are with it the responsibility of Norfolk County Council, etc., highways. So we're now going to go to the vote.
Can I just note, Chair, you have members have suggested they'd like to add this informative. I would say, for purposes of clarity, that you'd want to vote on adding the informative first.
Okay.
And you'd need a proposer and seconder for that, unless the existing proposer and seconder are happy to include that as part of their own proposals.
Right. Councillor Fitzpatrick, are you prepared to accept
Yes,
that?
I think I'm happy to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Cushing?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
good.
that's fine. So it'll become a part of that substantive vote on the application then.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for pointing that out. So does it the proposer, Tom Fitzpatrick, and seconded by Councillor Cushing, is to accept the officer's recommendation for approval as set out on pages 38 and 39, with the delegation of authority to the Assistant Director of Planning to approve subject to completion of the 106 obligations, and then with the conditions as stated as part 2 on the bottom of page 38 and page 39. So you're all aware of these, are you? There are quite a number of conditions. Right, we now go to the vote. If you could, as ever, say for, against, or abstain. Thank you,
Okay,
Matt.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Cushing?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitzpatrick?
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett?
For.
Councillor Fredericks?
Abstain.
Councillor Grove-Jones?
For.
Councillor Heinrich?
For.
Councillor Kershaw?
For.
Councillor Lloyd?
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle?
For.
Councillor Varley?
For.
And Councillor Yassimi?
For.
So that's 12 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you. So that has passed. And thank you very much, all of you, for that. That was a difficult one. We've had 2 quite difficult ones today. They've been in the pot for quite some time, so it's nice to get some form of resolution, especially for this one. Thank you all very much, and also to the public, members of the public who have waited patiently. We now go to, does anybody want a break? We've only got a little bit more to go. Are you all right to carry on for the moment?
Yeah, let's carry on, Chair.
Right, we now go to the appeals section. Goodness, Jeff, you're going to give us any good news? What page are we on? Page 95.
Can we take them in order, Chairman, and then we'll pause and let Jeff
Yes.
update on Holt, if you wouldn't mind.
Page 95.
That's the one. I'll lead you through, and we'll have that input from Jeff, which will be very valued. So we've got a list in the top section on page 95, new appeals, section A. You'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 appeals. I'll be happy to take any queries or questions on any of those appeals, but other than that, I'm happy to move forward. They're all in the early stages. You'll be delighted to see that some are fast track householder appeals that the inspectorate will determine more quickly, which is very good news for everyone.
Can I just stop you there, Philip, because I think Councillor Cushing wishes to to ask something?
I actually wanted to ask that question. What does a fast track household repeal actually mean? So thank you.
I think they leap round pretty smartly, sounds like, doesn't it?
It is exactly that. There's quite a bit to it, Councillor Cushing. Would it be helpful if I send you a link to the webpage that explains it in a little more detail? Essentially, it's a shorter process. There's much less paperwork. There's much shorter time periods for decisions, and the opportunities for the toing and froing that I had earlier on in a public inquiry this week that lasted for 2 days is much less available. So it is actually providing the goods, and I've got one reference at the end of this section at Northfield Road at Munsley, which actually demonstrates the planning inspectorate are turning them around quickly. I'll make a note to send you a link, Chris. Okay, so no further questions on the new appeals. Let's move on to inquiries and hearings in process. Jeff, if I can ask you to tell us exactly where we stand with Gladman at Beresford Road, Holt.
Okay, when I last spoke before, I think about 2 weeks ago, we were expecting the Gladman decision that week. We did get a letter from the planning inspectorate. I think they were being chased by Gladman for a decision. And the inspectorate came back and said, very sorry for the delay. The inspectors needs a bit more time. Hopefully we'll have a decision within 2 weeks. Now that 2-week date is tomorrow. And just having a very quick check on the inspectorate website, it still says not yet decided. So there's a lot obviously riding on this decision in terms of not just development management, but policy direction as well. So yeah, we'll obviously inform you straight away as soon as we hear that in terms of what the outcome is and what that means. So it's a watch this space.
Thank you. Arcady, Philip, how are we doing with that one?
Yeah, short update. The appellants agreed to a mediation process that I updated development committee members on earlier in January, and the mediation process has been reasonably successful to this point. We have got a revised set of proposals which the planning appeal team for North Norfolk are meeting on this afternoon. We will give advice on those revised proposals to the appellant, and they will consider whether or not they will submit a revised planning application by the 26th of March. So on that basis, we may be seeing a revised application which should significantly change the building. That doesn't mean that the enforcement notice is in any way withdrawn. It isn't, it still remains live. The planning appeal you see here remains live. It is simply postponed as a hearing date. So I will keep you updated as we move through this process, and you may be updated potentially at the end of this month that an application has come forward, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We need to have that meeting with the appeal team. Thank
you. And the jet washing of coaches, I see that's been rescheduled. We've just got to wait for them to give us some new dates.
Again, Chairman, we're awaiting an application. We're given to understand that that application is imminent. I would also mention Itteringham, which took 2 days of my life earlier this week. We sat through a public inquiry process with the local community and the appellant. And I think that we should have a decision on this within around about 6 weeks of the sitting. It was an exhaustive process involving council and many witnesses. Everyone had a chance to have their say. So it should be a comprehensive decision that we reach on that enforcement notice appeal at Itteringham.
Thank you. Any discussions from anybody? Questions about this section? No, then if you'd like to carry on, Philip.
Okay, I've got some notes on the appeals in hand. Obviously, you can see where we stand. The most prominent and long-standing one of those is the Woodland Archery site at High Kelling, and I regret I'm not able to give a date. We keep writing to the inspectorate. I will continue to press the inspectorate for a decision on this, because this appeal has been in standing now for 18 months and desperately requires a decision for all parties as soon as possible. Beyond that, if there are any questions relating to those other appeals in section C, then I'll be pleased to either answer them in writing or in the meeting today. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Thanks, Philip. Officer Ralston, would you mind sending that information that you're going to send to Christopher to all members? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
About fast track. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the fast track householder appeals. It's obviously a popular piece of advice.
It looks like it. Thank you very much.
I'll make sure that's with you by the close of today, members. We'll send that out. If I could ask Linda to help me get that over to you, that would be helpful. Okay, and then yes.
Can I just ask, Philip, the Wivton one, is that an enforcement notice that's gone out?
The Arkiva telephone exchange.
Yes,
it is. It is an enforcement appeal. It's a written representations appeal. I simply don't know why it's taking the planning inspectorate so long. Again,
unbelievable, isn't it?
We press them. I think it's volume of work, if I'm being honest with you, members. It's a shortage of inspectors, especially on enforcement matters.
Well, don't recommend any of our planners, because we've lost one already for the inspectorate. So we don't want anybody else.
We've given our quota, members.
I think we have for quite some time.
So turning to section D, the appeal decisions, I'm pleased to tell you both appeals were dismissed. The appeal in Blakeney at Langham Road was dismissed on grounds of size and scale and impact of the development in terms of it being oppressive in terms of loss of light and its relationship in terms of privacy with the near neighbour. And then the one that I can tell you, which is a fast track householder appeal, is Northfield Road, Munsley. You may recall Councillor Fredericks. This was an application that was through very recently. It was a proposal to convert a garage into a dwelling, and the inspector found in the same position as the local authority, principally on matters of design in terms of the changes that were made. An interesting decision on that matter of design, and was very much led by the officer's consideration, contrary to the views of the architect that was representing the applicant. I should also, I think, members, we talked about Sheringham today. Unfortunately, the Sheringham members left us. I should also tell you, members, we have some good news on the Shannocks Hotel. We are in a position where I reported to Cabinet earlier this week on the matter of the demolition process at the Shannocks. We're in a situation where the compulsory purchase appeal is now subject to an agreement between the site owners and the district council, which has given a timetable for development on site. The timetable will require the commencement of demolition by the 1st of May and its completion by the 1st of June. I can tell you today, members, that we are in a situation where the district council will actually start this process on a small building which is adjoining the Shannocks Hotel. That demolition, I'm told by our services team, will start on the 15th of this month, and that process will then start the wider demolition of the Shannocks Hotel. So you will see a construction demolition compound which will be placed on the council's car park at the promenade in Sheringham, and then will be used for 1 month to take down the hotel building. From that period of demolition, we are under an agreement whereby commencement of work should start within 1 year from the demolition, and that work should be complete within 2 years. So by June 2023, we should be seeing a complete new building at the very latest on the seafront instead of the Shannocks building as it stands today. If that process is departed from in any significant manner, then it is under the agreement that the site would then cede to the district council for the district council to dispose and develop.
Thank you. We do have Councillor Withington with us still. Liz, were you aware of this?
Apologies, Liz.
Were you aware of this? Liz? Has she gone, Matt?
She is still in the meeting, but I'm not sure if she's actively engaged or watching.
Okay, fine.
I'll be writing formally to ward members, the town council and members of cabinet to confirm all of those issues. But I felt it was very important today, given our decision in Sheringham, that I confirmed that at least one part of Sheringham will be moving forward very quickly.
Yes, and good, because that's been another eyesore. There's no urgent business. Number 10, No need to exclude press and public. Number
Just
11.
no, Councillor Kershaw had his hand raised.
Oh, I keep missing you. Sorry, it's because you're
I'm
popped
missing
up
you
in the,
too. I'm missing you
well,
too.
you're in the corner and the yellow hand comes right out on the corner. That's my excuse. Yes.
I just wanted to comment on the Shanex and thank our legal team for the way they've approached this, Alexa in particular, and I think this is a very satisfactory result which could save the council a lot of money in the way it's been handled. So thank you.
Yes, well said, Richard. I think we can support that. There's the only other business, not urgent, but well, it is, I suppose, is to say that I don't know if you all are aware that Sarah Ashurst is leaving us at the end of next week. She's moving on to pastures new at Norwich City, and she's taking over, I believe, as head of planning. Philip?
Sarah will be working as head of regulatory control, so that will not just be planning, that will be environmental health and also private sector housing.
So I shall be very sorry to see her.
Yes.
I'm jolly pleased for her that she's going to progress in her career opportunities. I could spit at Norwich City because we keep losing people left, right and centre, but there we are. That's the nature of things. I was telling Philip earlier when we had a conversation that when my first meeting as a chair of the district council was a little bit chaotic for one reason or another, including myself. And I sat there and thought, my goodness, what have I let myself in for? And Sarah was beside me and she turned round and she said, well done. Excellent. She said, you did very well. And that was so sweet of her. And we had just a little personal thing here. And again, I told Philip this, it's nothing to do with planning. We used to put on our bright red lipstick, woman power, so that we supported each other in the meetings. I just thought that was so funny. We used to do it every time. So I shall miss her dreadfully, but every good wish to her. And I hope her progression is extremely high. She reaches the clouds. Does anybody wish to add anything to that? No? Well, then I will pass swiftly on. If you could pass my comments on to Sarah, I'll probably give her a buzz next week, but if not, if you could. No urgent exempts. So we have finished at 11:20. Thank you very much. And there is no, you'll be pleased to hear, there is no meeting until on the 25th of March until April. What date is it?
April 11th, I think, Chairman.
Right. So
April
we have a month, which is the first time for quite some months.
I beg your pardon, Chairman, it's the 8th of April.
The 8th. So the 8th of April is our next meeting. Anyway, I hope none of you get home and find that half the house is blown away. So, and jolly good luck. Have a lovely weekend. And I shall see some of you next week, as ever, for meetings.